Your Seattle Mariners are heading back to Seattle. This coming Wednesday is Game 3 of the ALCS. They are up 2-0 on the Toronto Blue Jays, looking to secure their first ALCS pennant in franchise history, head to their first ever World Series. They've been to the ALCS 4 separate times. They have never started up 2-0. Gary, how are we feeling after these first two games in Toronto, now coming back to Seattle?
You can't. It's hard to describe. It's a dream start to this series. It really is, to take the first two in Toronto, and especially with the context. Toronto is a really good team. They're the 1 seed. They have the best record in the American League. They've played great in that building this year. They just steamrolled the Yankees. They didn't just win the series, they dismantled the Yankees. They were well rested. They had the rotation set up perfectly with guys on perfect rest. So all those things were happening. Meanwhile, the Mariners turning to Bryce Miller on short rest, turning to Logan Gilbert on, I guess, weird rest. I mean, it's kind of normal rest in terms of a start, but then he had, the outing in extra innings in the 15-inning game. So it's wild, I think. You put all that together, and the Mariners are up 2-0 in the series. It was a remarkable 2 games in Toronto. It's so funny for someone that was there in 2022 as well. There's just a lot of great playoff vibes in that building, given the last 4 games. But I give the Mariners a ton of credit because they've fought through a lot in that Detroit series to make it happen and go into Toronto and do what they did. It really was a team effort. And that's what you have to do to beat a good team like the Blue Jays. Like, the rotation did enough. I mean, Bryce Miller was amazing. And even Logan Gilbert, his start on paper wasn't incredible, but given the context, he gave the Mariners what they needed. The bullpen was phenomenal. The offense was great, clutch hitting, everything you could have possibly wanted. And that's why it's a dream scenario to be up 2-0 coming home. And the Mariners hope they're not going back to Toronto ever. So that's where they're at. I mean, 3 games at home to win 2.
Yeah, and I think an awesome stat is that this is the battle of the 1977 expansion franchises. Both the Mariners and the Blue Jays were added to MLB in 1977. As we all know, the Mariners have never been to the World Series. The Toronto Blue Jays are looking to get back there for the first time in 32 years. 1993 was the most recent. And I don't know about you, but it feels like the rivalry between the Mariners and the Blue Jays is like coming up to a close second between the Mariners and the Astros. You just have the playoffs in 22 with the wild card. Now you have this happening. Obviously, throughout the season, when it's a Blue Jays series in Seattle, the fans pack the house. I think, just the overall rivalry, I think it's really building. How do you feel about that?
I agree. And also, I think playoff games and big games really help with any kind of rivalry situation. I think that really feeds into it. And the Mariners have had one with Houston, obviously, and some playoff matchups there. That's helped stoke that. And of course, a division rival as well. But yeah, you start meeting a team consistently in the playoffs, and that can happen. And you think about this now, and the series isn't over, obviously, but you think about what those fans have seen from the Mariners the last couple of years. And, we've talked about the drought a lot from the Mariners perspective, but hey, this is a Blue Jays team that's gone through a lot as well. When the Mariners swept the Blue Jays, they were swept the year after. They were swept in 3 consecutive playoff series. They actually hadn't won a playoff series in forever before this Yankees series. So it's a team that has had their struggles in the postseason with some really good teams. I remember that year in 22 when the Mariners swept the Blue Jays. That was a team that had World Series expectations. That was a really good team. And the Mariners just took it to them in 2 games and called it for the season for the Blue Jays. So I think intensity, I think, playoff games, and especially the unique aspect of Blue Jay fans that are in our vicinity in Vancouver coming down to adds a little bit of spice to the situation as well. But yeah, I think you're 100% right.
And speaking to coming into this matchup, as you described, the Blue Jays dismantled the Yankees. They scored 34 runs over a 4-game series, which is 8.5 per game. You had said that they had 50 hits, which is 12.5 hits per game. And you mentioned a crazy amount of home runs as well. On the flip side, so they had 3 days rest coming into this first game against the Mariners at home. The flip side of that is that obviously the Mariners grinded out the ALDS. Game 5, Tarek Skubal, 15 inning game, 5 hours. The next day, they end up taking a 5-hour flight to Toronto. The next day, they have to battle against the Blue Jays, and just the complete opposite has happened for the Blue Jays this series. Walk us through that game 5 of the ALDS, what it was like to get out of the stadium, get to the charter, get the passports out, and take that flight, and then heading into Toronto.
It was an incredible night. It was a night I will never forget. And I know for Mariner fans, if you were in the building, if you were watching, if you were listening, wherever you are, everywhere you were in the world, that is a game you will never forget. It was simply one of the best playoff games in history, full stop, right? And the Mariners were part of it. It was an instant classic. When you're talking about a deciding game that goes 15 innings, as it's just hard to describe the building too, because the building was living and dying on every single pitch. And the fans there exhausted themselves during the course of the night, just yelling and screaming and pouring every amount of energy into that game. And there were just so many. I mean, every game is like that goes that long, but there were so many little moments where if this happens differently or this happens differently, the Mariners are at home and not playing the Blue Jays and not up 2-0 in the American League Championship Series right now, right? It was just an incredible scene topped off by Jorge Polanco, who's just been magnificent this year. But it's just one of the great experiences of my life. I remember, I think the first words I said, Rick was on the final call and makes the final call. And I think the first words I said, this is one of the greatest moments of my life. and I say that, and I hope it didn't come across as selfish to me, because I said that because it was true to me. But looking around the building and, our view, we look down, and just to watch the fans and the cheers and the tears and strangers hugging one another. And I felt that statement was true to me, but as I looked around, true to everyone in the building. Like, it was one of the greatest moments, not only of my life, but everyone in this building, whether you've been a Mariner fan for 2 days or for 70 years, which isn't possible because I haven't been around 70 years, 50 years, let's say that.
Yeah.
This is a moment that every Mariner fan has been waiting for. And now the Mariners aren't quite on the doorstep of another moment all Mariner fans have been waiting for, but they're closing in on it.
This is the first division championship in 24 years, the first playoff game win in 24 years. I mean, we saw on TV, fans crying, hugging, cheering, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I pulled up this stat. The Mariners have the best home record since the start of 2024 with 40,000+ fans. After that game 5, they're now 19-7. So, 2-0 heading back to Seattle with this home field advantage that they have. And what's wild is that also the Mariners were second in the American League in home winning percentage throughout the regular season, second behind only the Toronto Blue Jays, who they just went up 2-0 against in Toronto. And then speaking to Jorge, he's setting history right now. Jorge Polanco is the first player in MLB history to have a go-ahead hit in the 5th inning or later in 3 consecutive postseason games. He's been the MVP by far so far of the postseason. The 2-homer game against Tarek Skubal, the huge game 5, obviously this Toronto series so far. I was of the fan of picking up Jorge Polanco's $12 million club option before he could hit the free market, because I knew what he was when he was healthy, a 270 from both sides of the plate, career hitter. Obviously, he had a down year. I mean, just what have you seen from Polanco re-signing with the Mariners, he had his hot moments throughout the regular season, and now partially carrying this team in the clutch moments.
I mean, they wouldn't be here without him. He's been amazing. And you think about Polanco, who's always been just a professional hitter. He's been a real pro during the course of his career, and he's put up some really good seasons with Minnesota. He's been an all-star, 30 home run season. He's had a wonderful career, and the Mariners just didn't see that guy because of injuries last year. And this year, we have seen Jorge Polanco. And what he is, there are spells when he goes through a season where he looks like one of the best hitters in the game. And we've seen it a few times this year. We saw it in April, the first month of the season. He was amazing. In fact, you kind of look back at that first part of the season, and Cal and Polanco really carried the Mariners in that first month. Polanco was critical to that first month of the season. And then the bookends were amazing. Polanco had another great September. It was more homers in the first month. It was more doubles in the last month. But he has picked a great time to go on another one of these heaters where he looks like one of the best hitters in baseball. Because if you think about what the opposition is dealing with, think about what the Blue Jays are dealing with, especially at the top of the lineup. Not only is he red hot, switch hitter as well. You have Cal Raleigh, a switch hitter at the top. You have Polanco batting fourth. You have Cal batting second, both switch hitters. You just think about the mayhem that causes for a manager trying matching up with the bullpen, for example, late in the game. Like, how do you do it? And we saw John Schneider try and turn Jorge Polanco around. Didn't work. Smashes a base hit into left field as a right-handed hitter. You have Cal the switch, and with Naylor the lefty in the mix there, Julio, of course, the righty. Naylor's been hot the last few days. Julio's been on a good run. They are very difficult to pitch to. Not only good hitters, but the lefty-righty thing is a real problem to match up against. And it's been fascinating to see like the different approaches both AJ Hinch and John Schneider have tried to take against that lineup. And at this point, the Blue Jays and Blue Jay fans want nothing to do with Cal Raleigh as well. So there's that part.
Speaking of Cal Raleigh, he is now the Prime Minister of Canada. He owns the Blue Jays. He owns the Rogers Center. He has an 852 career slug at the Rogers Center, which, as you can see from this graphic, is the highest of anyone else that has played there in history. The second guy is Freddie Freeman, who's 100 points in slug lower than Cal Raleigh. I want to play this clip. Obviously, it's game one, Cal Raleigh's home run. It's your call. I want to hear your thoughts on how this came to be. Oh, Canada.
I know.
That's amazing. Is that a first time call? Is that something that you've been just like prepping, ready to go? Like, okay, this is the time.
No, I that was not in the holster. That was just in the spur of the moment. Yeah, it's funny because I guess it's so funny in moments like that because I'm one that there's some people that have like specific calls for home runs. They say catchphrases, that kind of thing. I'm one that enjoys just kind of living in the moment and just saying whatever I'm seeing, whatever the moment tells me. And it's so weird in that moment. I kind of flashed to, it was really cool. The ceremony before that game, they had a giant Canadian flag in center field and the national anthem in Canada, which is a great song, and everybody's singing it. And it's a really cool scene. And in that moment, it felt like, are they singing about Cal? So in the home run, I just flashed to that kind of the national anthem before the game. And so I don't know because I was trying to sum up, you're trying to sum up. Not only is that a massive home run in the moment and tying the score, and it felt like it changed everything, but also Cal has just dominated that building and franchise. So it was just this one thing to try and encapsulate this whole thing that was happening all at once. So I don't know. I hope people enjoyed it because it was
No, it's
such a cool
incredible.
moment, and it's just, it's amazing when you hear, being there too. It's so cool because you hear the conversations and you hear uh, what people think, and Mariner fans, they don't always get a chance to hear what other places think of Cal and their own players. And as a Mariner fan, like when Judge, there's always a fear factor when Judge is in a lineup, right? You're always aware when Judge is coming up. And you're always talking about, well, Judge is due up second in this inning, or boy, you got to keep guys off the base for Judge. Otani's like that too. Like you're always aware.
Right.
Mariners, of course, they battle Otani forever. Mariner fans just know this. That's how Blue Jay fans and the Blue Jays see Cal Raleigh. They they see him as Judge. They see him as Otani. They see him as, I mean, he might as well be as tall as the CN Tower because every time he comes to the plate, it's terrifying for the building because of the damage he has done. So it should be very satisfying to Mariner fans knowing that every time he rolls to the plate against the Blue Jays, all those fans are thinking the same thing, that he's going to go deep right here because that's what he does against Toronto.
And the Blue Jays have agreed to rename the Rogers Center the Dumpers Dome
Yes.
after the 2-0 start in the ALCS. I mean,
Yes.
he just owns that place. And
It's
I mean,
amazing, man.
and then also the difference in, verbiage between, obviously there's the viral clip of John Schneider of a couple years ago speaking to, hey, if you just make your pitches, he's not very tough to pitch to now they're intentionally walking him in the ALCS. I mean, just the difference in perspective just with this one team, but let alone the league has been put on watch this entire season, 60 home runs. I mean, it's just a complete flip of perspective.
Yeah, he was asked after game one about thinking about walking Cal Raleigh, and he said, his quote's great. I'm paraphrasing, but he said, yeah, I think about walking him every time he comes to the plate. So I think he addressed to his comments from previous years when he took a shot at Cal Raleigh. Sounds like he really regrets saying what he said. He said he was a young manager, like, and clearly how Cal has developed into an MVP candidate. It looks even worse in retrospect now, but I think that's something he certainly regrets saying about Cal Raleigh.
Now, pivoting from some of the bats to the bullpen, I mean, we've seen some great appearances. I want to hear from your perspective, Edward Bizardo, what he has meant to this team. He logged multiple innings in that game 5. He's pitched in 6 out of 7 playoff games so far, 8 total innings, 9 strikeouts, just a 1 whip. I mean, he's been nails so far this postseason. What have you seen from Bizardo?
He's been a hero. He really has. And just what I said about Polanco, they would not be here without him. And in fact, that's a statement you can make about a lot of guys because you don't get here to this point in the American League Championship Series without contributions all over the place. And those contributions, like from Bizarro, ones you weren't necessarily expecting, right? But ones that you look at it now is like, where would they be without him? He's truly been, you felt confident about Munoz coming into the season. You felt confident about Brash coming back. And Spire has certainly bounced back and been even better, I think, than 2 years ago. But Bizarro has made this a back end 4 that is fierce. And it has been a long stretch now. I was just looking at it on a plane last night, flying back. His last 2 months, including the playoffs, it's nearly 30 innings of work, an ERA under 2, 35 strikeouts and 3 walks. And the other part to him, not only is he super effective, and it's not fluky. You look at the numbers, and his slider is really good, and his two-seamer is really good. He has 2 really plus pitches. Look at Savant, look anywhere else you want. 2 plus pitches. So he's dominating with 2. But he's also a guy that will take the ball every day. He can give you multiple innings. He's done it in those last 2 months. I think he's done it 5 times where he's gone multiples, right? I mean, you can't, the value of that, the effectiveness, the innings, the amount of times he takes the ball. He'll pitch in any role. We've seen him anywhere from, first guy to the pen in like the fourth to extra innings, right? And he has just been critical to what the Mariners have done. And you look at this series, and it's eye popping because the Mariners bullpen has thrown 9 innings in this series as a unit. And Bizzardo, of course, has been a part of that. They've allowed 1 hit and no
Wow.
runs. And meanwhile, the Mariners have really gotten to the Jays bullpen. So one of the big differences in this series, and maybe the biggest difference in this series so far, has been the Mariners bullpen versus the Blue Jays bullpen.
Bizzardo on the regular season, he pitched in 73 games,
Yeah.
78 and 2/3 innings. And now, like I mentioned, he's pitched in 6 out of 7 games. And then kind of speaking to the bullpen, but the starting pitchers coming out of the bullpen, I mean, it was so cool. Game 5, it's just a do or die. It's like you're throwing your entire roster at their entire roster, doing whatever it takes. Obviously, 15 innings. You gotta use some arms. They used 4 relievers, 3 starting pitchers. What was that like to see the starting pitchers first off in Logan Gilbert running out of the bullpen with the flames coming out, and then Luis Castillo later on?
So good. I mean, there's so many things about that. I mean, first of all, I give every one of those guys so much respect for all volunteering. Like to a man, they all went into Dan Wilson's office before the game and said, "I'm ready. Give me the ball. If you need me, I'm going to go." And, it was funny as the game was playing out because one of the things that we're always doing, because I like to think ahead, as I'm calling a game, I like to think with the game and anticipate what's going to happen. So I'm often, looking into the bullpen to see, okay, who's warming up, who's getting ready, what are the Mariners going to try and do here? What's the opposition going to do here? And it was so funny as that game was playing out. Like I would look out and like just to see Luis Castillo just hanging out there and Logan Gilbert out there is just so weird. You used to seeing the same, Munoz always standing around out there, just kind of pacing and Spire and it's like Castillo and Gilbert out there. But the flame thing was great. The entrance was amazing for Logan Gilbert. And just both Castillo and Gilbert had never done that before. They had never come out of the bullpen. And to walk onto the field, having never done that before, in extra innings, with no margin for error, with everything on the line, and to pitch the way they did was truly incredible. It was amazing. And it's so fun, and it should make Mariner fans feel so good to hear about guys, and you hear it up and down a roster. You hear about how much they want to win and how much they want to bring a World Series to Seattle and to the Mariner fan base, and to see their actions right along with everything they're saying, right? They're putting their money where their mouth is. Like these are guys that, and Logan did it again. Like Bryce Miller pitched on 3 days rest to start the Blue Jays series, and Gilbert took the ball, and we knew he wasn't going to belong in that game, and he clearly wasn't what he would have been on full rest, but he took the ball because the team needed him to take the ball. And I think as Mariner fans, man, you got to love that. You've got to love that. These guys want it, and they want it as much as the fans want it. And part of me feels like that's what makes, like that series in Detroit was incredible. The atmosphere was amazing. The fan base wants it. The players want it. There's just so much synergy going on in the building right now. And I just can't say enough about what the atmosphere has been like in Detroit. And I'm super pumped for Toronto. And just so fans know, like Mariners players talk about it all the time, how great and amazing the building has been. And that's not just something they're saying. They believe it. And from the opposition side, when we were in Detroit, it was really interesting because, as we all know, they experienced the building the first couple of days. And it was interesting to hear a couple players talk about what it's like for the opposition when a building is just like it was in Seattle, just loud and wild and up on every pitch. And a couple of guys said that like if you're a hitter, it gives you a little bit of anxiety in the moment, which I thought was really interesting. Usually you don't hear players talk about that sort of thing, especially in a series. And just I say this so Mariner fans know that they're making a difference. Like, it's fun and it's amazing, but I've always felt like Mariner fans go to ball games feeling like they can make a difference and they can help change a game. And I'm here to tell them that they're right, and they are. And I can't wait to see what these next three look like, or two look like, against the Blue Jays.
Game 5, there was a seismometer installed that was the Richter Riz is what it was called. Do we know if that broke any records? I know, like, pregame, it was like, okay, let's beat the beast quake if something crazy happens. If Cal Raleigh hits a walk-off home run, the dump quake is going to be the new thing. I don't know. Do you have any insights on how high that got?
No, I saw some readings. It
Right.
looked like it looked like things were shaking pretty good. It felt like things were shaking. In fact, I was listening to Dan Dickerson from I listen back to stuff after it happens, and I was listening to the Detroit broadcast, and it was I think it was the Julio double to score Cal. That's what it was, and the place was unhinged. And on their call, it was a very much a downtrodden call given the situation. And one of them, I can't remember him or the analyst, is like, this building is actually shaking. And it did. It felt like the whole building was moving. So it doesn't surprise me that the readings showed up, because it was a wild scene.
I want to kind of walk through the ALDS. There was, last time we had you on was before that series. Obviously, game 1 was a game that you think is a must win. Game 2, you're facing Tarek Skubal. They lose game 1, they win game 2. But specifically talking through that, there's a lot of chatter online talking about bullpen management and how things should be done. And obviously, game 1, George Kirby, they put him out there against Kerry Carpenter the third time through.
Mm.
The guy hits a home run off of a 97-mile-an-hour sinker at his shoulders. You have to give him credit, but the usage of the bullpen that game versus the next day, they brought in Gabe Spire to replace Luis Castillo. I see it as, I personally am a fan of what Dan did throughout the entire series, managing it. It's like game 1, you have to anticipate you're playing in 5 games. You have to try to get as much length out of your starter as possible. But then, Gabe also used later on in the series. It didn't end up going so well. Obviously, players have to perform. I mean, what was the talk internally as far as broadcast booth with the thoughts on stats versus current situation with emotion, with how it should be managed?
Yeah, it's kind of funny how it played out, and funny because the Mariners ended up winning the series because they don't make the move, as you point out, in game 1, and Carpenter goes deep against Kirby. They do make the move in game 3. It worked out in game 2, but they do make the move in game 3, and he hits a home run again. So it's like
off a lefty.
Yeah, off of Spire, which you never would have expected, because Carpenter,
right.
he doesn't hit lefties. That's the thing. Like, he is an all-star performer against righties. Like, his slash is really good in the last couple of years. Like, I probably don't have to tell Mariner fans this after watching this play out for 5 days and with all the righties the Mariners have. Like, he's a really scary bat for the Mariners, and he has been the last few years. So, it didn't work out either time, which is unfortunate. But, I think it's the hardest thing about the playoffs, because every move has such giant ramifications, right? And if things don't work out, the manager's going to get blamed. Even if you felt like the decision was the right decision, that's what the Blue Jays are going through right now. The chatter right now is about John Schneider removing Gosman in the first game of the series, right? That's a lot of the talk about game 1. If the reliever comes in and gets the out, that talk goes away. But that's the conversation, and that's kind of the reality, especially in the playoffs, because everything these games just hinge on these small moments, and a lot of times those are the moments. And for the Detroit series, a lot of those moments hinged around Carpenter, just about every time, and that's why Hinch moved him up to lead off. I will say, I thought the final game of the series, the fifth game of the series, is the best game that Dan Wilson has managed.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he pushed every right button. His work out of the bullpen was incredible. He was such a big part of how they won that game. Because what you do as a manager, at least how I look at this, is, and what the Mariners have been so good at, I think, over the years with their bullpen, is putting guys in the best position to succeed. And I think that's how I think about bullpen management and pinch hitting, however you want to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Putting guys in the best position to succeed. It doesn't always work out. They don't always succeed, but as a percentage play, I think that's what you're trying to do most of the time. And I just think in game 5, he just managed a beautiful game.
Yeah, and you can see it from both sides, going back and forth. Okay, we're going to put in Dominic Canzone. They put in a lefty, and then you got Leo Rivas, 28th birthday, one of the biggest hits in franchise history. I mean, walk me through that moment.
Well, it was amazing because he's striding to the plate for the first time. He had not batted in the postseason, and here he is in this just enormous moment. And you just don't know what to expect. But I remember saying before the series started, and what's great, one of the things I love about the postseason is I always feel like your stars have to be stars. But if you make a run, win a couple series, go to the World Series, win the World Series, inevitably, you're going to have a couple of moments where heroes are made for all time. Moments where fans will never forget. Moments where 20 years from now, that player can walk into the ballpark, even if he never plays for your team again after this playoff run, and will tip his cap and get a standing ovation. And that was a Leo Rivas moment. Leo Rivas, he could never play baseball again after this season. Fans are going to love him forever for that one moment. And maybe he'll have a couple more along the way. But it's one of those things I think about. And what makes the playoffs so great is legends are made, and a legend was made in that moment because it was just an enormous hit when the Mariners needed it the most.
Absolutely. And pressure makes diamonds. And, Leo Rivas steps up, first postseason plate appearance, 28th birthday, and he steps into that moment.
He said after the game, I woke up today. It was just, wished him happy birthday. I woke up today. I knew it was going to be a great day. It's like, yes, it was definitely a great day.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, walking into these next couple games of the series in the ALCS, you got George Kirby on the mound. You got Luis Castillo, obviously from the start with the ALDS, with how you slot out the starting rotation, obviously how they're doing it now. You want George Kirby, you want Luis Castillo to be at home versus some of the other guys you're more comfortable with pitching on the road. What insights do you have onto those decisions, how they were made? Obviously looking at the home and away splits, I mean, Luis Castillo and Logan Gilbert, they have relatively similar home and away splits. They're about evenly separated of like their overall results from pitching at home versus pitching away. Luis Castillo has a slightly higher ERA away. I'm curious your insights on some of that.
Yeah, well, first of all, I love Kirby going on normal rest. Part of the heroics of Miller in game 1 and even Logan in game 2, not only did the Mariners win those games, it speaks for itself, but they both gave the staff and the rotation a reset because they were, given the situation with everybody pitching in game 5, they were in pretty tough shape. But Miller, with his miracle 6 innings, which is just one of the most incredible starts in Mariners history, given the context and what happened and the meaning of the whole thing. But it set the table for Kirby to take the ball at home on normal rest. And Kirby has thrown the ball great. Like you love him, especially at home right now. Like he's been breathing fire on the mound. So you love that. And Castillo's he's had a really good run since September started, but he's been especially dominant at home. And part of it is, there's a lot of fly balls there, and it's a great place for fly balls to go along with everything else. Like he's just has more margin for error, which I think really helps him. And so, I think that was part of the thinking with him going in game 4. But you think about, I've been thinking about this a lot recently and how this year has played out, because as we know, the Mariners rotation has been the backbone for a long time. But this year it's been more of a struggle. And you look at the season totals and they're kind of middle of the pack in a lot of starting pitching metrics. And we know why. Gilbert missed time, Kirby missed time. Miller really hasn't been himself, or the guy we saw last year, until the last couple of starts. Wu's now missed time as well. Everyone but Castillo. So they really haven't been together as a group and all pitching well as a group for much of the season at all. But now you look up, and at least I feel like Kirby's throwing his best ball of the season right now. If Gilbert's not throwing his best, it's close right now. Miller is clearly the best version of Miller we have seen this season. And Castillo is pitching his best ball of the season. So it took a long time to get here for the Mariners rotation. But and injuries are never a good thing. But the silver lining of the whole thing is not only are they pitching great, but there's no innings issues with Kirby. There's no inning issues with Gilbert. I mean, there are no considerations for what they can do the rest of the way, which is why, had Gilbert been at 200 innings coming into this postseason, would he have been capable to throw 30-some pitches out of the bullpen and then take the ball on a start a few days later? I don't know the answer to that. Maybe he could have, because he's a horse. So maybe he does. But the Mariners just find themselves, after just all the turmoil with the rotation through the year, in a really great spot after everything is all said and done. Like, it feels like the rotation has hit the stride at the exact perfect time.
And speaking through Bryce Miller's start, I mean, obviously early on he had the bone spur thing. I was thinking at some point he's going to be shut down and just get this taken care of, like come back next season, just kind of, play cautiously. But he was able to recover and get to a spot to where now he's coming in the postseason. He's sitting 96, 97. He's back to his solid stuff. Bryce Miller gave up a leadoff first pitch home run to George Springer, who's notorious for ambushing for first pitch fastballs in games. Then he goes on to log a quality start, 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 run allowed, just that 1 home run, 3 strikeouts, 3 walks. He's actually the first pitcher to allow a leadoff home run and complete 6+ innings without allowing another run in a postseason game since David Price did it back in 2018 for the Red Sox in Game 5 of the World Series. It's like that stuff doesn't happen. And that first inning, first pitch home run, that can get away from you very quickly. I think the total was 27 pitches in the first inning, and then each of the next 5 innings was like sub 2-digit pitch count type thing. So what he did was absolutely incredible, and be able to extend into that game and not have to utilize the bullpen like they did prior.
He was amazing. And especially on top of the home run, which was a really good pitch, by the way. It was 97 on the corner. That was tip your cap to Springer, because looking back on that pitch, it's like, wow. But then it was like a 12-pitch walk right after that.
Right.
And then he walks another guy in the inning. And at that point, because we didn't know exactly what to expect. You really never know exactly what to expect on 3 days rest for any starter. So given the home run, a couple of walks, you're like, oh man, this could be a long day. It just could. And the Mariners, we didn't know about, was Bizarro available? The bullpen had done so much work too. You think about where the Mariners were at coming into that game. And then for him to just go ultra efficient and just dominate, and really the best he's looked. His fastball was just carving. It was 96, 97, which we saw against Detroit early, but then it just didn't hold the velo through that start in Detroit, but he held the velo all night against the Blue Jays. And again, the context, man, that the last time the Blue Jays were on the field before that, they were just bombs away against the Yankees, just homers and hits and runs, and in that building just going wild. And Miller just comes in there and shuts him down completely. It set the tone for this whole thing.
And I just thought, yeah,
it's just, I am still in awe of that start. And I know numbers wise, there have been better postseason starts in Mariners history, just in terms of the line, but the context of what that start was and the conditions he was under, that's one of the greatest starts in Mariners postseason history, no question.
And every time that Bryce Miller is out there and succeeding, I just always have to think back to how he got to this point. He was a closer at Blinn College. He then went to Texas A&M. He was a reliever for 1 to 2 years, and then he was a starting pitcher just his senior year, I believe. Drafted as a starting pitcher by the Mariners. He's been a starting pitcher for really 4 or 5 years, 5 years now, and he's doing what he's doing at such an elite level in the major leagues. It's just always incredible to, and then now he has 6, 7 pitches. He came into the league with that four-seam fastball and, pretty much that. But it's just always incredible to see the development of these players. And speaking to a bit of that, the 2025 Mariners playoff roster, this is how it was built. There were 11 guys that were drafted by the Mariners. There were only 3 that were signed as a major league free agent. There was 4 that were signed as a minor league free agent. 1 international free agent in Julio Rodriguez, 20 via the trade, and then 3 via waiver claim. So, like, you look at some of these teams that will be competing in the next series, like the Dodgers, that are buying away, major league free agent type guys, versus the Mariners. Over half the roster was built via the trade, and then also 11 drafted, developed in-house. I think it's just incredible to see the structure of this team.
Yeah, and even the trades, like you think about Randy Rosarena. I mean, they made that trade because of late round drafts, right? The guys they hit on, Aiden Smith, who they hit on to acquire Rosarena. So that's what drafting does. It does 2 things, right? You produce your own guys, and the Mariners are full of them, as you point out, especially in the rotation with Kirby and Gilbert and Miller and Wu, but also to trade for what you need, which we've seen with Castillo and Rosarena and Naylor and Suarez, to go get what you need. And so it does 2 things for you. And I've had a lot of conversations about the way and what the Mariners are doing in the draft, because we all see it on the field, but bigger picture, like, this is everything. I heard Jeff Passan talking about this to some Toronto people and telling them, because if you're a Blue Jays fan, you probably don't necessarily know what the Mariners farm system is like, and you probably don't necessarily know, like, where all these players come from, or where Wu was drafted, or the backstory of Miller. Like, if you're just an everyday Blue Jays fan. And Passan was telling him that this Mariners team is here to stay because not only with the group they have in the majors right now, but the way they're developing in the minors right now and the way they're drafting right now. And he just rattled off, Cole Emerson and all the guys coming, which I think it's nice to hear someone from the outside, because we're in this all the time. We watch this every day. We're so close to it, but it's nice to hear that confirmation from somebody looking at it without passion and just talking about what they see. And it's what we see. And the Mariners, Scott Hunter and Hollander and Dipoto and Jesse Smith and Furman and all the people in the front office that people may not know, they have worked on their draft systems for years and years and years and fine tuning it, and all the scouts that we never get a chance to talk to. And they're just doing such a marvelous job with the draft. And especially right now in Major League Baseball, you just can't overstate how critical it is to develop your own guys. You just have to, because it is impossible. And the Dodgers are the closest because they have the resources to build a team through free agency. But for everyone else, it's just impossible to build a team on free agency and be good. Like, free agency can supplement for sure. There's no doubt there. You just can't build a core through free agency. And the Mariners have done such a wonderful job of building the core. And it looks like it's gonna, I mean, they have a chance to keep it rolling for a while, given how they're developing. And it's part of the problem that the Blue Jays have run into, where they kind of have the Bo Vladdy era, two homegrown guys, right? And guys to build around. And they supplemented those guys with free agents like Springer and Bassett and guys like that. But then they kind of stopped producing their own guys until this year, where, Lucas and Clement have kind of emerged to really help out, the Bo and Vladdy core. But it's just hard to survive without producing your own guys.
Absolutely. And the Mariners are structured to win now and also into the future, like you mentioned. I believe they have 9 prospects in the top 100, which is the most out of any franchise. Meanwhile, the Mariners have won 85 plus games in each of the last 5 seasons, one of 4 MLB teams to do that, along with the Dodgers, Astros, and Brewers. The past 2 seasons, the Mariners were 1 game out of the playoffs. Realistically, they could have been in the playoffs each of these past four seasons. And now you have this wave of young talent that's coming up. Mariners drafted Cade Anderson, left-hander out of LSU, 3rd overall. I mean, we'll see if they have to get flexible with the starting rotation in the coming years, but they're just so deep in like really every position to where it's just going to be a wave. Guys reach free agency. Okay, you might be able to sign 1 or 2, but then you have this wave of guys to come in and replace them.
Yeah, and you talked about missing the playoffs those last couple of years, and this year I think is proving the point that we have talked about for a while. Now, 3-game series, 5-game series, anything can happen. But this is what we talked about. If you can get this staff into the postseason, the Mariners are a team built to make a run in the postseason. And that's what we're seeing. Now, this is the best offensive group, clearly, that we've seen from the Mariners in this era. But you can see these playoff games are very close. They're very tight, and pitching often wins the day. And when you can throw out, it's funny to hear some of the talk in Toronto, because I don't think a lot of people realized how good Bryce Miller was last year outside of Seattle. Like, I think he was one of the best pitchers in baseball, especially at the end of the season. So, and in terms of the Mariners rotation, his name isn't as big as Logan Gilbert and George Kirby. So from like some Blue Jays perspective, it's like, we just got shut down by the 5th starter for the Mariners. Like, I wouldn't look at it like that, but that's the way
The
they
5 against their ace.
Right. That's it. The 5 against the ace, and the 5 dominates the ace on 3 days rest. So you just think about how that looks from the Blue Jays perspective. But to me, that says more about the depth of the Mariners rotation, because if you put a healthy Miller who pitches like that on other rotations, no one's considering him a 5, that's for sure. Right. But it's kind of funny to see how Blue Jays fans have experienced this whole thing.
Now you have Kirby, you have Castillo, and then we got some positive news that Brian Wu is on his way back. He is on the ALCS roster, and he's expected to be pitching in Game 5 tentatively if that's needed. What have you heard from Brian Wu? It sounds like he might be limited to about 50 pitches. How close was he to being moved to the bullpen for the playoffs?
Yeah, I'm still interested to see how it plays out. And, I always feel like the playoffs it's everything is fluid. I think things are moving from day to day depending on what's happening. Like, what would the Mariners do if they were down 0-2? What would they do if it's tied 1-1? What are they going to do if they're up 2-0? I just feel like decisions, and not just for the Mariners, for any team. I feel like decisions are always fluid depending on the situation. Like Toronto's going to act differently when they get to Seattle than they would have if it were split or they were up 2-0. Like the desperation is really going to be there for them in these next two games with pitching decisions. So the news sounds great for Wu. He sounds super optimistic, which is wonderful news. Like I have no idea how long he can go in the game or what he'll look like. I just know it was such a heartbreak the last time we saw him on the mound because he was dominating the Astros. They weren't touching him at all in the biggest series of the season. And you think back to that, the Mariners trying to win the division. They really won the division in Houston. I know technically they didn't win it in Houston, but it was won in Houston by sweeping that series. And Wu was unbelievable that day. And the fact we haven't seen him since, and he hasn't been able to pitch in the postseason, is such a heartbreak because you think about what a healthy Wu would mean for the Mariners in the postseason. And the good news is they've gotten to this stage, and he hasn't pitched yet, and he still has a chance to be a factor. And maybe he'll be a factor in this series. Maybe he'll be a factor in the World Series. Like, who knows how it ends up, but man, it's just when you get to this level and you have 5 starters you can rely on, it's such a gift because that's not something that most teams have.
Yeah, Brian Wu during the regular season, third in WHIP, 0.93 walks plus hits divided by innings pitched, second in pitches per inning pitch, the second most efficient pitcher in baseball. Obviously, he had the streak with quality starts. If we were able to get any production out of Brian Wu, that's much better than nothing, and going to be excited to see. But yeah, these next 3 games will be incredible. I guess from your perspective, thinking back to the last time the Mariners made the ALCS and your view and perspective as a fan back then compared to now, can you compare and contrast maybe these rosters, these teams, and just the overall vibes and feel of the city?
Yeah, I mean, the city's on fire right now. Everywhere I go, it's wild. Like last night, after the Mariners won, my wife sent me a text and said, "There's fireworks going off in our neighborhood." I said, "Yeah, let's go, man. This is great." Like, everywhere I walking around the neighborhood, just everyone's so fired up. It's so great. Everyone just brings everyone together a run like this. And, Mariner fans, it's such a generational thing to me too, where, fans have waited so long for this, sons and daughters and fathers and mothers and grandparents, right? It's just Mariner fandom is passed down, and we've all been waiting for this run to the World Series, and it feels like it's happening. Now there's still a ways to go in this series, and the Blue Jays are a really good team. So nothing should be taken for granted at this point, but this feels different than years past simply because of the situation that they're in right now. They've never been as close to the World Series as they are right now. And you think about, they've been here 3 times before, right? And 95 was kind of a team that was out of gas at that point, and Randy Johnson had thrown forever, and Cleveland was a great team, and they couldn't get by him. And you think about those early 2000s, or the Mariners were an amazing team, and so were the Yankees. You look at those rosters the Yankees had, and those were series that I felt like could go either way. And I think the Mariners and Blue Jays are comparable. I think both teams are really good, and they both have strengths. But right now, this is one I felt like the series could go either way. But right now, it's going the Mariners' way. And, if they played the first game of the series 10 times, I don't know how many the Blue Jays win, how many the Mariners win, but the Mariners won the only one that was played, and that's all that matters, right? So they're as close as they've ever been. And I can't wait. Yeah, I think about this a lot. But the moment that it happens, it will happen at some point. The Mariners will go to the World Series, and we're all hoping that it's this year, that it's in a couple of days. That moment's going to be incredible for a lot of people. A lot of people have waited so long for it to happen.
Can't wait for Wednesday and then Thursday. I mean, this weekend might be a fun one. So really appreciate you for coming on. Thank you, Gary, as always. Just an amazing time to be a Mariners fan right now, especially heading into this series, the final few games of the series. So thanks as always for hopping on. And if you're watching the game, you do have the ability to just put on the radio broadcast to listen to Gary and to Aaron and some of these guys instead of listening to the main broadcast like I did, unfortunately, for a majority of the first couple series. I mean, I hear from all sides is like just the bias, but yeah, thanks as always for hopping on and
anytime. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, and hopefully next time we chat, we'll be talking about World Series. That'd be super fun.
Let's do it.